Welcome to Conversations from the Edge of Consciousness. I'm your host, Kristine Madeira. For me, and possibly for you, the inner world of consciousness has always been much more real and way more fun than the so-called real material world. Growing up, I thought I was alone in this, but I'm not. There are a lot of us, and far too many have no one to talk to who shares this experience. I've been lucky to cultivate a community of friends who love to talk about the energies, ideas, and vibrations that are pushing the edges of our own consciousness, as well as our collective consciousness. In Conversations from the Edge, we share our conversations with you. Welcome to Conversations from the Edge. This is your host, Kristine Madeira, and we are here again today with Linda Lang. And Linda and I had done some amazing DNA repatterning work on our last conversation. And Linda is this wonderful energy magician who has this huge toolbox of things that she does and some amazing energies that she channels. But I'm going to ask her just to say whatever it is she wants to say about herself today. And then we're going to launch into the second part, or actually the third part, but the second conversation about our DNA repatterning. So Linda, welcome, and just tell us a little something you want us to know about you today.
Well, Kristine, first of all, thank you for another wonderful conversation that I'm confident will transpire today. And I'm really excited to finish this DNA transformation process with you. I suppose what I am first and foremost is an explorer of spirituality and potential, whether that's on the energetic level or your soul level or on your earthly level. You know, once we balance our emotions and step into our power, there's so much more potential available to us. So that is why my tagline is open your mind to new possibilities. I thoroughly believe that we are far more powerful and have far more potential than we imagine.
And I think that's why we get along so well, because we're both always looking at like what else is possible.
What else is possible? Exactly.
So we had started our last conversation about DNA repatterning, and then you actually did a process with me, and you did the first two pieces of DNA repatterning, and we were going to start out today by talking about the effects of those. So we had started, I had come up with a new affirmation, and for me this affirmation was an aspirational affirmation. So it was something new for me, it was something I wanted to bring in, and I was pretty misaligned with it because it was a new affirmation and being aspirational. And so Linda started her DNA process with me, and we were working with the affirmation, I thrive in harmony with my highest good and my highest purpose. And that, when we were doing the DNA transformation on this, you know, the first two pieces took up the entire rest of the call, and we had conversations in the meantime. And so we were going to start out today a little bit with what some of the results were about that. It's been a week and a day since then. So did you have anything to add to that, or anything you wanted to say about that before we move forward?
Well, I am definitely curious to hear what's happened for you. What I would say is when I tune into your energy as you repeat that affirmation, it's considerably more aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite fully aligned. So I'm really curious to see what will happen after we do today's energy work. But yes, Kristine, please share with us what you noticed after our first session.
So initially, and it usually takes about 72 hours for me with big energy work to see how it's going to land in my system. But initially, for the first several days, I was really in this state of kind of a deep peace. And also, I could tell that lots of things were reorganizing and reforming in my system and in my energy. I was getting dreams. I was having awarenesses. I was having these, I call them energy downloads. So this, you know, this package of awareness that comes in, like fully at one time and unfolds. And a lot of it was really about allowing myself to be who I am in the world instead of trying to conform to something I thought I was supposed to conform to that I didn't realize I was thinking I needed to conform to. So it was almost like taking off layers and layers of straitjacketing, and allowing myself to be like fully myself in the world, however I needed to show up in that particular moment, and letting that be okay. And relaxing into being like an infinite being, having this amazing experience, and being open and interested in the adventure of that experience, as opposed to worrying about or having one eye on, how am I going to translate this experience into, a career or a lifestyle or something. Like it took away that piece of, not uncertainty, but a little bit of anxiety, because have really been guided to live in a way that's very different than what we're trained to live in. To go out and you get a career and you advance in your career, you create this retirement, blah blah blah, you do all these things. And I have always been guided toward having this much more quiet, energetically busy existence, but not necessarily energetically busy out in the world, energetically busy within, doing lots of this inner transformation work and bringing that in little bits and pieces out into the world. But it's never really translated into something that had sustained me financially. And I was just wanting to be at peace with that and let that piece unfold however it unfolded. And this really helped me feel much more supported and much more able to be who I am, and to be comfortable with what I'm doing in the world, and know that that's actually perfect for me, even if it doesn't look like what other people probably think I should be doing.
Wow, that is so beautiful, Kristine. I mean, really, if nothing else came from this, that is huge.
Oh, yeah. And it was a lot of layers. So like, I'd go through 3 or 4 layers in one day, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, and I'd go to bed and I'd wake up and I'd be a completely different person in the morning. And it's like more layers had moved away. And it was really interesting to see and feel, as things moved away, what would come up. Not a bad thing, but like what awareness would come up and be like, oh my gosh, this is like, this new piece of truth feels so much better than those old pieces of story that I was living under. And it's been magnificent. It's been very, very good. And it's also helped my body feel really much more relaxed than it had. I've been feeling places unwind in my body that have had kind of some chronic tension.
It is hard work being your not self.
Oh my gosh, isn't it?
Yeah, totally, totally. And I think that there's probably very few people that are actually expressing their true self. And there's so much weight and tension when you are trying to conform
Mm-hmm.
to something that, as you said, other people expect, or you have taken on the belief that this is how it's supposed to be and how you're supposed to be. And what a gift you give yourself when you can let that go.
Yeah. And it's kind of been my life's work in a lot of ways, but this was a whole new and deeper level of that. And it's one that I'm deeply appreciative for. So thank you very much.
Oh, well, you have yourself to thank, really, because I think we're given what we need when we need it. Yeah, my role here is just kind of to be the guide and the channel of the energy, and you and your system
Mm-hmm.
do the work. So it makes me very happy, though.
Well, and I think that that is absolutely true. And we had talked about this before, that it is so much easier to go deeper and get better, get more complete work when somebody facilitates for you rather than you always doing it yourself. And I think that's one of the great awarenesses and gifts of this time is, and Ram Dass talks about this, that we're all here walking each other home. And, we're all walking ourselves, but we don't, none of us are doing this all by ourselves without being in community with one another.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, is there anything else that you'd like to share, or are you ready for the third and final part?
Oh, I am ready for the third and final part. This will be fun. It's been so great so far. Let's see what happens next.
All right. Well, for any of the listeners that listened to the first conversation that we had, while I was channeling the energy, I would breathe differently. I was using what is considered to be the highest goddess energy on the planet, and they are it's symbols through my Huna shamanic training. This third level doesn't include Huna. I'm using the diamond ray, which is the same energy that I remolecularize or restructure water with. And of course, we are 70% water. So it works equally as well on us or anything else that has water content. And so I'd like you to be, just before we start, to tune back into the intention. I thrive in harmony with my highest good and my highest purpose. And I want you to just kind of tune in to that, Kristine, and just notice how you feel, what your alignment is like with that intention right now.
Well, I don't know if it's meaningful for other people because I tend to get things in sensations. So there's activity in my body and there's a winding through the spine. But beyond that, there's nothing that I can really share much more about.
Well, I think that's good, just to give people clarity that sometimes when you tune into things, you don't get a great, mental or logical knowing. You don't necessarily get emotion, but there's always a sign from your unconscious, and those physiological feelings and sensations, hold power. I feel quite a bit of activity actually when I tune
Mm-hmm.
into you through the back and the spine. So when you consider that, our central nervous system goes down our spinal cord, and it's really key to sending messages to all parts of the body. And today we're working on DNA transformation. That it's pretty an interesting place to be holding all that energy.
Yeah, and it has all just to comment on this shift. It has all kind of moved up. There's some pressure in the back that I recognize for me as something that's wanting to move through. Like as I think it's ready for the work, but it has moved up to the very top of my spine into my brain. Oh, and now into my eye, as we had this conversation prior to
Mm-hmm.
this, that there's some sensation, sort of consistent blocking in the eyes. So it seems to be excited for some work and priming itself.
Very good, very good. The only other thing I would like to say about this is, for the listeners that aren't familiar with epigenetics or Bruce Lipton's work about how our thoughts and beliefs affect our DNA and how we can turn things on and turn things off, I am in no way saying that this is going to cure people's, irregular DNA. What my understanding is that if it wipes away the cause of why we turn certain keys on, or why there is some disruption to our DNA patterning, if we can let that go and we stand in that place of choice, of
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness, then we can make different choices than what's been our pattern. And it really can shift, that
Mm-hmm.
we're the place of the power. The energy is just kind of giving you a blank slate, if you like.
And they've demonstrated how DNA is changed by trauma, by different kinds of experiences, and that DNA then does get passed down through generations. So, we have damaged DNA patterning that comes through. So being able to change that and reform that to, a more pristine DNA freedom, I guess, or bringing it back to its pristine form, really does help us to make those choices. It works on so many different levels. It's not just that we choose in our mind to make a new choice. We choose in our bodies to make a new choice. We choose in our emotions to make a new choice, and and our energy and everything works together to really activate that choice.
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole energetic level, which is a level that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a person, if they're really, really attached to whatever negative issue that they're trying to release, I mean, they can reinstate it, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Easily.
Or they can let it go and have a totally different experience. And they do say that this kind of DNA work travels back, generations
Mm-hmm.
behind and forward. But this is a grand experiment. So let's go ahead and I'll do the energy channel. It's a silent channel. Most people can feel it, not everyone. And I'll tell you just very, very briefly that the diamond ray is a very high vibration, intelligent energy. It often continues to work on people after the channel between us is complete. Mm-hmm. Almost everyone feels it, but there are a few that don't. Yeah, and I'll let you know if there's any information that comes through. Sometimes that there's something you need to know on a conscious level, and sometimes not. So we're going to just focus on that affirmation or that intention. I thrive in harmony with my highest good and my highest purpose. And we're going to take out any DNA patterning that is contrary to you actualizing that intention. And the channel has started. And of course, we want to keep all of the learnings that we receive through all of our experiences. We're just wanting to let this release from the DNA and through the lineage. Well, it feels rather delicious, I would say.
Oh my God, yeah. I've been, when we did this the first time, I had told you that, I experimented and played with Miche with all the synapses that pop in my brain when I do various energy work, and when things are repatterning and even repatterning on their own. When we did this the first time, there was a lot of popping, and this one was at least as much, possibly more, and in some of the same places and some places that are different. So it is, and I don't know if you have done any kind of sphenoid bone work.
No.
Okay. So the sphenoid, do you know what it is?
No.
Okay, there's a floating bone, and it's the one bone that is connected in a weird floating way to all of the bones in the skull, and possibly the bones in the face, but the bones in the skull. And it's, I forget what it helps to kind of pump the pituitary gland. And it also energetically, for me anyway, and I'm not sure how it works energetically for anybody else, but its natural motion is it's not quite a nod. It's sort of like a circular nod where it's going forward in kind of this rounding circular way. But I would notice that energetically when I was not, like when my conditioning was refusing something, I would be shaking my head in a little no, and it would be the sphenoid bone leaning that. And that when I was in a like a yes, whether it's receiving or that energy would like take hold, it would shift to, you know, the first a nod and then the circular nod. But it's a fascinating, for me, a way to gauge what's happening with the energy.
Mm.
And prior to this, like right before when we were talking before, we were going to start and then we had a little lag and then we were going to start. And I was in the no thing. So it was reorganizing to be able to receive this. And it went into the yes before we started this. And it's, you know, moving in that flowing yes. And it's just like, to me, anytime it's doing that is just amazingly
It's
flow
like
of energy when it does that.
it's like magic, really, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Can I tell you how I experienced it or what was shown to
Yeah.
me?
Yes, please.
It was very interesting. Such a bright light in the center of the head, like where the pituitary would be, like
Mm-hmm.
the sun. And it was almost like the crown and the top of the head just kind of like split open so that this sun could shine more. And then there was a really interesting movement in the bottom half of the skull
Mm-hmm.
that like swayed to the left. And so it was like out of alignment at first, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
slow sway, and then it swayed over to the right,
Mm-hmm.
and then came back into center, fully aligned with what was happening in the head. And there was quite a bit down the back, and then it kind of quietened down. I thought it was done, and then it started up again, and it was aligning some things in the throat chakra and the thyroid gland, and then down to the heart. And at the very end, it felt like and looked like these little sparks of rain that were really light.
Mm-hmm.
So in my Huna training, we would call that uh, a manaloa. It's a very high spiritual energy that kind of rains down blessings on you. And it was
Oh,
all on the back. And then it was on the face and the front of the body. It was just beautiful.
well, that feels really, really good.
So I thrive in harmony with the highest good, with my highest good and my highest purpose. Yeah, that feels good, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's feeling true. Like it still has some integration work to do, but it's feeling much more grounded and centered and true than it did even before we started this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's gone from being a concept or
Mm-hmm.
desire into an embodiment.
Yes.
Wonderful.
I did want to comment, you know, because we're doing this really wonderful energy work and it had all of this amazing energy that you could see and that I can feel, to people who this is new for, that when this kind of stuff unfolds in your life and it integrates and it begins to change things, what often happens is, you know, you're oriented differently. So life comes to you a little bit differently. People act a little bit differently. Different kinds of opportunities come. And there's kind of this period in which you have this opportunity, like you're aware oftentimes of how you used to respond and what an old pattern was, and the opportunity to choose a new pattern or to choose a new way. And that new way, you know, can feel really good, but it's often also has a lot of uncertainty and unknowing about it. And that's part of the adventure of choosing the new way. And it's easy to want to go back to the familiar. But the energy when you do these things, it's like your deeper self is calling you forward into the unknown, because when you're leaving the familiar, all that you can do is walk into the unknown and let that unfold and let that adventure be what you live. And that present moment living is the adventure of living from your higher self or your deeper truth.
Yeah, well, very well said. Very well said. I always encourage people to adopt the belief that, change can be easy.
Yes, and good, because so often it's patterned that change is always bad, but you can always find places in your life where change is good.
Exactly, exactly. And where it is easy and natural. It's actually
Hmm.
the natural state of the universe. Nothing really stays the same.
No, no. And the natural state is really that impetus to grow and to expand, and that you don't actually always have to do anything to do that. You just allow life to bring that to you. If you look at a child or a puppy, they grow simply because they grow. And just because we become adults does not mean that we don't grow in the same way, but that impetus to continue to expand and grow is still there. We just do it in different ways.
And I think when we stop growing and we stop, having that purpose or stop having some type of contribution or something that
Mm-hmm.
excites us, that's when we start disconnecting with our life force energy. I think it's really important that in some way people connect with something that, sparks them, inspires them, expands them.
Yes. Well, and I always look at it as well that, when we're a child, we adopt the conditioning, we adopt all these things through our DNA and through our parents and through our life. And there's all the way that we're supposed to live and the rules that we're given that, you know, were things these expectations that we grow up with. And when we stop growing physically is where we begin to make those choices for ourselves, because there's oftentimes I will hear, I can't honor my family and make a different decision than what my family has made. A lot of my work with people has been that you can honor where you've come from and also make a new choice. And the process of adulthood and adulting, I guess, as they call it, is not just being able to, pay the rent and drive a car and be out on your own and have a career, but it's really about becoming your own person and doing so in a way that gives continuity by honoring what should be honored from the past and also becoming who you are from within. And it's that process of becoming that is the process of adulthood if you choose to accept that.
Yeah, exactly. If we are solely committed to honoring the past, we're just going to continue to repeat it. And there is great wisdom held in the
Mm-hmm.
past. And so when we can kind of harvest the wisdom that our ancestors have carried and brought forth for us and evolve it into something even greater, which I believe that is something we're doing as a species at this moment because there is so much
Mm-hmm.
change
Yes.
that there's a whole new paradigm that can be created with our roots from way back when.
I'm doing some repatterning work in the first chakras, actually the first four chakras, with kind of this new energy work coming in, which might be better suited to a different conversation. But it is harvesting the best of the past and bringing in a whole different understanding of who we are and what our tribe is and what it means to be part of the continuity of civilization and people and the past, I guess.
I have an agreement with my unconscious mind that,
Mm-hmm.
it's like having a breaker switch that if something is too intense energetically, then it's just like disconnect immediately.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to set that up. I tend to be like, well, bring it on. We can do more. I'm getting better at at recognizing when I need to integrate and take that time and to pause and to take care of myself and to eat well and to rest before I can do another big piece, which I think is why we needed a week in between. Because there was a lot. This was an aspirational thing. It was new for me. And there was a lot. It was a whole cascade of things that needed to readjust from the first two before I think the third could have as much impact as it seems to be having.
Well, I'm excited to hear what happens next, Kristine.
Well, we will talk about it in our next conversation. So, why don't you tell people how they can reach you?
So if you'd like to connect with me, you can visit me at thoughtchange.com. I'm on Facebook as Thought Change, Instagram as Thought Change 123, Twitter as Thought Change 1.
And all the links will be on, or all the links that you've given me will be on the conversationswiththeedge.net page. So you can always go there if you can't remember Thought Change in all of these different venues.
Yeah, I'd also like to encourage people to come and have a listen to my podcast, Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. You'll find it on YouTube, on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Anchor.fm. It's all over the place. We're on Facebook as well.
All right. Well, it has been wonderful talking to you. And thank you again so very much for this amazing gift. And I can't overstate how profound this change has been internally and as my life is beginning to rearrange. So I will report on both of these as we move forward so that people can see that it's not just an inner change. There's also a lot of external things that happened when our internal world shifts.
Beautiful.
This is your host, Kristine Madeira. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation from the edge of consciousness. You can find all our conversations at conversationsfromtheedge.net. You'll also find links to schedule a private conversation with me or any of my friends, as well as tools to help you expand your own consciousness and explore what's possible for you outside the boundaries of your current perceptions. Feel free to use this podcast to start your own conversation by sharing it with friends, on social media, in your blog, or even in your own podcast. And as always, live the adventure of pushing your own edge. It's the most amazing adventure there is.